Tom DeLonge is a well-known and accomplished musician. But in addition to his impressive musical career, Tom has an impressive level of knowledge related to UFOs. Maureen and I sit down with this veteran UFO researcher to talk about space and UFOs. It's now time for our interview with Tom DeLonge.
You probably know Tom as a guitar player and vocalist in his bands Blink-182 and Angels and Airwaves.
But Tom is also a veteran UFO researcher. Having spent more than 20 years researching the subject, Tom is extremely knowledgeable and well-read on many aspects of the phenomenon.
He's got a lot to say when it comes to the subject of UFOs, so without further delay, here is our interview with Tom DeLonge.
Tom, it's great to sit down with you today. Thanks so much for joining us. We're happy to have you on the show.
Thank you. This is very nice of you guys to come to me. I appreciate it. Usually San Diego is sunnier. Or more sunny.
We brought the rain, I guess. I don't know how that happened because we don't have rain in Phoenix.
Oh, Phoenix. Yeah. I was wondering where you were. You should have brought this. You guys are good.
We're supposed to bring the sun. Yeah.
A lot of people from San Diego go to Phoenix.
Yeah.
If they have to go to school or something, they're like, well, it's still sunny there, so we'll be okay.
Overly hot, though.
And it's the opposite way for the Phoenix people. We all run to San Diego. It's kind of our playground.
Yeah, and I get it.
Well, Tom, I've been excited to talk to you about UFOs. You've always been vocal about your interest in the subject.
Right.
And, you know, it's interesting. I don't think a lot of people understand that you've researched this subject for more than 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more. It's a longer time period than a lot of the leading researchers in the field right now.
Right.
So that's pretty incredible. And
well, I think they, yeah, you're right. I've been doing it for a long time, and I think a lot of researchers tend to dive into one area of it.
That's
pretty
right.
hardcore. You know, hey, I'm going to write a book about Roswell. Or someone else comes in and says, I'm going to write a book just about, you know, the Majestic 12 documents, you know, and I'm the kind of guy that, you know, I'm pretty broad about all the subjects. I've gone deep on a lot of them. But I've kind of surpassed the icing on the cake, and now I'm kind of digging down into, you know, the main ingredients of the cake, you know.
I really want to talk to you about that. But what initially sparked your interest in the subject?
I don't know. You know, one of my first memories is being in 7th grade, where I was walking. I had like an hour in junior high. It's like the first, you know, school kind of system in junior high level where you get to walk between classes, so you have a few minutes. I, for some reason, had more than a few minutes, so I had to go to the library. And I was walking to this library, and I didn't read books at all. Then, you know, in school, I was like, books? Who wants to read books? You know, I'm in skateboarding and stuff. So I'm like, well, if I have to read a book right now, I wonder if there's like any weird like UFO books. And I don't even know why that came to my attention. It was so odd, because and all I found was a book that had something about one UFO and the Loch Ness Monster. But either way, it was cool, and it was in my school library. And from that moment forward, it really sparked my interest. But there was a gap there until I was able to actually afford to buy a computer. So computers were really happening when I was 20 and 21. That's like the beginning of the 90s, like, bam, things are happening with computers. So I signed a record contract and got my first paycheck. And the very first thing I did was I went out and bought this shitty like Compaq computer or something. And at the time I thought Compaq was this cool brand. It must be cool. It's at Best Buy, you know, or whatever it was. And I brought it home, signed on, and I think I just typed in like UFOs or something, or Area 51. I don't even know. There's the common term. And at that time, it popped up the Desert Rat papers. Do you remember the Desert Rat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot his name. I want to say Gordon or something. Or
I don't remember.
I don't remember, but it was the guy that lived in Rachel, Nevada, that just all he did was just blog and write about his ongoings at monitoring Area 51, because at that point, part of, you know, one of the peaks looking in were free. So the Navy didn't really wrap up the entire mountain range. One part of it was open. So he was able to go in there and do some quality stuff. And so I was instantly hooked. I'm all, this is like fiction, but it's nonfiction. It's even better.
And back then, were you searching on AOL?
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, probably AOL. I know. Remember when AOL was like the biggest
the big thing?
That's it constantly baffles me, like how the biggest thing is not even there anymore. Like later, like Microsoft, you know, it's like they're still there, but you know, you would never have thought that Google would have taken out AOL and Microsoft, you know. But.
So I think it's pretty amazing. I know you've read like an insane amount of books, because when you're on tour or whenever else, you've been able to just like pile through every topic on the subject pretty much. What do you think is the most quintessential book for, let's say, younger people getting involved in the field, like that you would suggest to read?
You know, it's I probably wouldn't be the same as most other people. A book that really was great, a great author that I think people can start with, kind of entry level, and this is no dig to the author because he's so fun, is Jim Marrs. Now Jim Marrs is really fun because he has a way to tackle these subjects that go really deep, but he puts them in a vocabulary that's really mainstream and easy to digest. So I remember about 10, 15 years ago or something, it was a long time ago, maybe not that long, but it was long, he came out with Rule by Secrecy. And Rule by Secrecy is a great book, and it's not all about UFOs, but what it gives you a taste for is how secrecy is kept and how people work in these little cabals within the government that you never thought would exist. And it's like a 3-day read, because once you get into it, you're like, oh my God, you know? And the reason I start there is because there's a tiny, tiny bit about UFOs. There's a tiny, tiny bit about the kind of Zecharia Sitchin movement. There's a whole lot about how the government compartmentalizes stuff and some of the esoteric kind of happenings behind the scenes. So when you read that, it opens your mind to, okay, there's secrets that are possible. There's ancient kind of and you know, history that's antiquated that I might not know about, that's alternative to what I was taught in school. There's groups of people that do have a position of power in areas that I didn't even know exist. It kind of gives you these doors that open to all the other stuff. Because if you just jump into a book and go, there's aliens running around New Mexico or something, you know, you just don't really, you just kind of go, oh my, this is dumb, there's no way, you know? You kind of have to you got to set yourself up to know that anything can happen, or a lot more can happen than you're used to. But I think you just got to, I tend to have people start there first, yeah.
It's an interesting place to start. We love Jim Marrs. He's actually fun to smoke a cigar and have a drink with.
I bet. I want to hang out with that guy.
He's pretty awesome. Well, speaking about the younger generation, younger people getting interested in this field, you know, I think your being vocal about your interest has opened a lot of people's eyes to considering looking into the subject. You know, I think on a social scale, the pop culture idea of UFOs is something fun, something silly, something fiction.
Right.
But when people start looking into the reality of it and looking at research that's been done by governments around the world and things,
right,
people start doing their research. And I think you've encouraged a lot of people to take the initiative and look into it for themselves. And something really good I think you've done is you and your band Angels and Airwaves put up the site Strange Times.
Yeah.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, Strange Times, unfortunately, it's kind of in this holding pattern because the guy that I was working with running that moved to the East Coast. And so we're like, okay, so what do we do with this thing? So we put it under construction because we're in the middle of building out a whole different thing. But the way it started it started with hardcore fringe stories that we knew a lot of them might not have totally been credible, but they were fun. And we wanted people to have fun with the sensationalized headlines. And then we'd start peppering stuff that had more depth. So once again, I was thinking a little bit more of like, who's the guy that's not interested in this stuff, but then you can kind of go, wow, this is entertaining. And then we can kind of lure them into some more stories. And we try to do at least a few UFO stories each week. Even though we're doing about 20, 30 stories a day, and we were just aggregating headlines from everywhere. We weren't too crazy about writing our own. We wrote a few of our own stories, but we just wanted to get people interested. And I think by the time that we actually started getting deeper and deeper into some, we started doing some crazy, awesome interviews, by the way, where they were phoning them in and we had them recording in the recording studio, and we're getting ready to launch all this stuff and the whole new site. And then Matt moved to the East Coast and we're like, all right, what are we gonna do? And I just haven't had time to pick it up. I'm just a really busy guy, you know? But the goal is very similar to what you guys do, although I'm interested in a lot of stuff because when you follow UFO kind of folklore down the abyss, there's a lot of stuff in there. Everything from, you know, religion and alternative history to physics and science to the unification of religion and science to a lot of World War II history, a lot of, you know, current events within NASA at any given moment, to politics, to the geopolitical order. You know, things that are happening on the world stage can be tied to a lot of different things that might have elements of, you know, international cooperation in space and what they found out there, or what they're hiding out there, or what they're doing. It's just crazy to me. So with Strange Times, I wanted to. Never was too good at it, but I wanted to somehow bring all these things in there and get people interested in all of them, you know?
Yeah, not stuck at the top secret. We've been paying attention because, of course, we get traffic from the site because, thank you, you guys publish a bunch of our stuff. But I like how you have the look of it, too. It's got that edgy, like, again, look that's going to draw in younger audiences. But like you're saying, space exploration here is going nuts. So what's your opinion on the privatization of the space industry right now?
I think it's good and bad. The privatization of the space industry, the good things is you won't have the bureaucratic mess and legal hassles of doing it with under the government, where they start a project, the guy's voted out of office, a new guy comes in and wipes away 4 or 5 years of hard work and billions of dollars spent. Start from scratch. We're not going to Mars, we're going to the moon. We're not going to the moon, we're going to a comet. We're not going to the comet, we're going to stay here and put up a satellite. It's like, fuck, get something done. So it's going to change all that. Corporations have to compete. They have to compete for many different reasons, for profits, and primarily in publicly traded stock. For those types of things are transparent, how they spend their money and how much money they're making. Okay, but intellectual property is private, and intellectual property is protected under law in the democratic kind of capitalistic West. So, and that's important because when you're Apple computer and you're building the iPhone, you don't want, Android to come over and steal it, or the Galaxy S3. We all see those patent law for, you don't want Samsung stealing your stuff. So those laws are important too. But when you take the ability to research the depths of the human race and put those within corporations, they fall under those property laws. So now they don't have to tell you their reasons of what they're doing and what they're finding. They just have to show a profit. That sucks, because those are things that not every human can do. That's things that not every person can just kind of land on the moon and send a little remote control car around and see what's really there, So what I'm hoping is, being a Sagittarius, the eternal optimist, what I'm hoping is that with people like Richard Branson and people over at SpaceX and these guys that are genuinely like eBay guys that had a bunch of money, I'm hoping that they've got a little bit of the 60s revolution in their blood, and they don't trust the government as much, and they're doing it for the love of humanity and exploration. Now, they might get shut down. They might see something or get something. I always find it really odd that Google had the foresight to buy all these satellites and to map the world. But at the same time, you can go to all these locations and they're blurred out on Google Maps. Why? And what happened to do that? And did the government come to these guys at Google and say, you have to blur these sections out? Like, they weren't going, well, what the fuck's there? They go straight there, go, what do you want us to blur? Don't look at it. Who knows? So if they blurred it out for people, then they know it's there, and then they saw it too. And if it's just a base, that's cool, whatever. Or that instantly means that they're working with the government for guys that were working for the people. So this is just a long-winded answer to, there's good and bad here, but I'm hoping that there's more good.
I'm with you, man. I mean, it's a valid concern for sure. You've got all these people, private companies with their private interests, and who knows if their interests are more than money. So money is certainly there. But with Elon Musk, with SpaceX, man, he seems like a really genuine guy. He just
think so.
He wants to get there, man. He's on a push for Mars, hardcore.
Well, if he's pushing for this, colonizing Mars in the next 10 years, with supposedly the price tag is going to be $500,000 per person, which is affordable.
Yeah, you get a coupon.
Exactly. So we'll see.
It's like Jurassic Park. We'll do a coupon day.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, I want to take it back to UFOs for a second.
Sure.
You've actually been on a couple shows recently. You were on Larry King's show with our buddy James Fox. That was great. And last December, you were on Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
And you told a great story on Coast that involved a mummy and toilet paper mummy.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to hear your experience going out.
So me and my friends, we would
this thing.
Me and my friends would take these little UFO trips because they were just supporting me, and it was just an opportunity at the time to go out and smoke a bunch of pot and get all weird. And so we drive out to the desert, and we had all of our stuff. And at the time, I was hanging out with Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer, which is controversial. It was fantastic for me. And that, maybe I should start the story there. And when Blink was first popping, I realized quickly that I can pretty much call anyone and get them on the phone. So I called up Dr. Greer's office and I got them on the phone. I said, hey, I want to talk to you about UFOs and stuff. And so he's right on. So I flew him and his daughters out to some show, bought their plane tickets, got them out there. And then I'm about ready to go on stage. There's like an arena. There's like 10,000 some people waiting, they're cheering, and I'm back with him. I'm okay. I'm walking to the stage, but we're stopping. I'm trying to get as much information as I could out of him. and we kindled that relationship, you know, over a while. And I flew a producer from MTV. Back in the day, they had a show called MTV Diary, and the guy that created that show, I flew him out to Greer's ranch and got into a bunch of stuff. At the time, Greer was doing the Disclosure Project. No one had these tapes of all these witnesses. He had 100 hours of it, but he edited it down to 36 hours or something. And I was the first person he gave the tapes to. He would never leave this backpack. It was really rad. It was like a spy movie or some shit. And I'm like on tour. I'm like, I thought it was awesome. So he gave me all these tapes, and I'm like, fuck, I guess I'll hide them in my house somewhere. CIA will never find these. My phones got weird at that moment. So as soon as I started hanging out with Greer, got these tapes, and started flying him and Dr. Carol Rosin out to the LA, which was funny too, because I'm at this big agency called Creative Artists Agency, which is like, they represent Tom Cruise and shit. And so I have all these agents at this round table, and I bring in this chick with crazy hair, and I bring in Greer, and all these people are at this table, and they're like, and I sit them down. I said, I want you to hear this, you know, and they just start going off, super dramatic and serious. Greer, he just gets into his thing, really, eloquent, and just sets the stage with all these people at the table, and they were like, what the fuck is going? They didn't quite. All these Hollywood agents were like totally baffled at this whole experience, and they walked out of the room not even knowing what to do with the information or anything. It didn't really go anywhere. So in any case, if during that period of time, Greer he thinks he found out how to communicate with the entities behind these UFO things. And part of his controversy is that he would sell these kind of outings and materials to do such a thing. But, you know, me, I get it for free. I was like, let's go try this. So me and my buddies would go out to the desert, and we did. So that's what you do. There's a few things you have to do. You have to follow his protocol. And so we made a big trip out of it. So we got these little strobe lights. You put them out in a certain way. You try to be away from any city streets and all whatever. You put radar detectors, certain types of radar detectors out to detect any kind of disturbances in the electromagnetic spectrum. And then you follow these tapes, these like kind of meditation tapes that go on for like 45 minutes or something. So we put those on, and we're doing all that stuff, and then all of a sudden these bugs start biting us like crazy, and we're like, we're trying to meditate, but we're like slapping ourselves. It's like insane. So we're like, what the fuck? We didn't bring any bug spray. We didn't know it was gonna be all bugs out here in the desert. So then we're scrummaging through the truck to try and find. We found toilet paper for God knows what reason. So here's some toilet paper. Okay. So we start wrapping our faces with toilet paper. And after all the dumb jokes subsided, which was really funny because we weren't really sober, we were making these really crazy noises and stuff, and it was funny as shit. We were laughing, but by that point, it's like 9:30, 10:30 at night. We're 3 hours from any road. We drove 3 hours from any city, 1 hour off of a highway in a dirt canyon. It was crazy. I don't even know where we were. And we're following these tapes. We're literally about 35 minutes in this meditation. There's like bugs all over toilet paper. We're all sitting there. We're in these like little lawn chairs, and they're like sitting in the dirt. And there's these strobe lights blinking. So as your eyes are closed, you see little flashes from the strobe lights blinking, and you're following these meditations. And then all of a sudden, the alarm on the radar detector goes off. Bam, 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 bam. Like we jump up, scares the shit out of us. Because at that point, your heart's like part of it is you're trying to get your heart rate down. If you ever meditated, like part of the what you're trying to do is really focus on your breath and your heartbeat. So you're really in tune for the first time with, whoa, my heart's not even beating. This is rad. So when that happened, we jumped up, we looked around, and I was scared that we were going to piss our pants because it was so loud. Something happened at that moment. Now, that's not such a big deal because what do you think it could be? Well, it didn't go off. It was on. We used it on the way out there. We didn't want to get pulled over with the police car, for a ticket. So we used it for the 2.5 hour some drive. Never went off once, ever. But it went off an hour into some weird little canyon at the deepest part of this like situation, right? So it caught me off guard. Didn't see anything. But we did the same thing. We did it one more time. We went back out to the desert. Same exact thing. Set everything up. Did the meditation. Brought bug spray. We're cool. At the exact same moment in that fucking meditation sequence, the alarm went off again and scared the shit out of it. I told you. I told you. I was like such a validation, but totally, vacant. Like a vacant validation at the same time because there's nothing there, but I was like, something was happening, But it's not like it's got the best end of the story, but my own experience is that it still could be a lot of fun if you go out, and do it. But I do have the night vision goggles. I have bought these insane night vision goggles I can't leave the country with. I had to fill out all these papers and stuff, and I've seen 3. And it's taken me 6 months at the first 6 months it's taken me, and I haven't seen them since, but I saw 3, and spread out over a period of like 4 weeks. And I saw it, and people think, oh, it's a bird, it's a bug. You see everything. Like, you see everything. It's like lit up like this. When you put those on, it looks like this, but kind of green. So you can see distance. It's not like you're blind to depth. And so you look up, you see 10 times more stars, you see bugs fly by, you see planes, you see satellites. I mean, it's insane. But then you see this little one that's higher than a satellite that starts from one horizon to the other horizon, zigzagging all the way through the atmosphere in 2.5 seconds. Like 2.5, like 1,000, 2 1,000, it's gone. And you're like, what the fuck was that? Because you're watching and counting satellites and seeing little comets come in and out, but not something accelerating, changing direction, accelerating again, changing direction, and then exiting 180 degrees distance. And I saw 3 of those, so at different times. It's insane. So,
You know, and we've seen those too. We went out with a night vision, same experience pretty much, where you see these objects and they take sharp 90-degree turns all of a sudden. We actually did see, I mean, this is way up, you know, in space, obviously, what looked like a delta-shaped craft.
I've seen those like on YouTube. That's insane. I want to see one of those. I know that those are out there, and I've seen pictures in the night vision that were super high up. That's insane. That's what they saw in Phoenix, you know, and the Phoenix lights. People describe that delta wing with all the lights and stuff. There's something out there. I wouldn't. But, you know, but so much of the interesting stuff with UFOs comes from people have to, if you're going to investigate UFOs, you have to do equal amount of research on the U.S. Department of Defense and know what they know and know what they're working on and know what they do so you can separate one from the other. It doesn't mean that you know, the sensationalized UFO thing doesn't exist. It just means that the U.S. Department of Defense has craft that can do incredible things. And that all stems from, I mean, they would video these things at Area 51 when the ridges were open. I mean, things that blink out and pop up, things that accelerate, things that hover and glow different colors. If there's someone in there or if they're unmanned, we don't know. But they've been playing around, or, you know, T.T. Townsend Brown that drew out the first UFO in like 1918 or 1912, an electromagnetic UFO schematic. Looks exactly, you know. Then the Nazis got all into that stuff, and they were fucking around with these kind of Mercury engines and displacing mass with counter-rotating electric magnets. That's been around for a long time. In the 60s, the U.S. got a hold of this kind of science, and they started jumping into it. So the idea of kind of manipulating you know, the fabric of space and time has been around since literally the early 1900s and has been put into testing in the 30s and 40s, and I believe was probably mastered in the 60s and 70s and was able to be put into craft in the 80s. And throughout the 90s and now, there's crazy shit. But that is not the stuff that is showing up that's a mile wide in the atmosphere that these airliners see. That is not the stuff that is on you know, cameras from NASA spacecraft that are zipping out of Earth orbit, I don't think. You know, that is not the stuff that's floating outside of the sun, you know, when you look at photographs of the sun on NASA's own website. You know, so it all exists, but you have to be aware that yes, some of it we can build and have. And I know a couple guys that work at Skunk Works, and I said this on Coast to Coast. And Skunk Works is like the elite engineering division for the United States, part of Lockheed Martin. And you know, the stealth fighter, the F-117 is done now, because in their mind the Raptor came out, which is like the newest aircraft, and that's the thing, the F-22. But that stealth fighter, it was around for 15, 20 years before we ever even heard about it. You know, they were testing it and building it, but it was there. And that thing's obsolete, and that thing still looks like an alien craft, you know. We do not know what they have. These guys will openly talk to me about certain things. You know, they will tell me about craft. We have craft that are completely invisible. It could be hovering right here, and you would have no clue it's right there. They would tell me that when China and Russia have their satellites fly over, they would push out some of their craft on the tarmac that literally look like spheres, you know, and just to confuse them of who we're working with and what they are and this and that. They would tell me a lot of different weird shit. The latest one was George Knapp from Coast sent me this interesting article about a commander in the Navy that was talking about what he was privy to in Roswell, kind of a whistleblower deathbed story. And I forwarded that to one of these guys, and the freak out. This guy's like late 60s, he's retired, but his specific job was, him and his brother both worked there. His brother works at Area 51, he just retired. His brother and his son, it's always like in the family, it's so weird in these like companies. His brother and his son work at Area 51, and then this guy worked in the big base out here in Southern California, but his secret clearance was extraordinarily high. He was in charge of a lot of different stuff. So FBI and I know this guy because he's connected to me through like friends and family, like really close. And so when they grew up, the FBI was always at their house. They couldn't leave the country, all this crazy stuff. But when I sent him this article about what this guy saw, this guy in the Navy, like he just comes back just like crazy passionate, outline 5 things from the article. I did not know this, this, and this, you know, and he's not dumb, you know. He's just straight up. He could have just said it's cute, funny stories, right? He could have said he could have just sent me a picture of an alien drinking a coffee cup or something, you know, but he doesn't. He's all, oh my God, I did not know this, this, and this. It's to him, it's like we're past the point of its existence. We're talking about elements that he's not privy to, that I might find that we kind of coordinate together. It was funny. The other guy that worked at Area 51 is badass. I was backstage at a concert. Where was I at? Bakersfield, maybe? And I met up with him, and I was talking to him about that name, which I'm sure the name isn't true, obviously, because we know it, but the TR-3B Astra. And I was talking to him about it, and I was saying the reason why I think this is real and the reason why I think it's ours is because of the physics and the work that we did in the 60s based off the work the Nazis did in the 30s and 40s about the counter-rotating magnet engines, you know, the scalar physics that Richard Hoagland always talks about. But it's real, and it looks like magic to us, but it's totally real. And so when I was talking about it and showing it to him, I said, listen, I know you can't talk to me about all this stuff, but I'm going to tell you what I think. And this is what I said. I put this whole thing together, and he's staring at me, and he's like, you better be really fucking careful. That's what he did with it. And he pointed that at me. He goes, you better be really fucking careful. This is not a joke with what you're talking about. Like, it was so awesome. I get goosebumps. I'm onto something. Yeah. I just felt so validated. I was like, yes, gotta go play a show. Yes, you know. Yeah. But so I'm getting pretty good at piecing things together. But one of my favorite things is, you know, Jacques Vallée, which is like the godfather of all knowledge in these kind of categories. He was very clear about people forget that intelligence agencies get all of their intelligence from the real world. People think intelligence agencies are these gods that know all. All they do is study everything that's in the open and come to, you know, create their conclusions and come to their own analysis of whatever the thing is. And you can do the exact same thing. You just got to spend the time to comb through all the happenings of the world and be able to put them together and cohesively make a story. And that's what I do.
Well, and if a guy as busy as you can find time to do it, that's pretty awesome.
Oh, I know. It's the only thing I can do. It's really, my wife's always like, God, you and the books and this weird shit. I'm just like, it's the only thing that gets me out of my obsession with music and rock. It's like the only thing I have that can like get my mind off, you know, the enormity of the music business, which I'm immersed in, unfortunately.
Well, Tom, I know you're busy, so we'll wrap this up, let you go. Thanks so much for taking the time to sit down with us today. This has been fun. We'll have to do it again.
Good. Yeah, I talk too much. I'm sorry. No. I love it. I'm really into it.
That's what we're here for, man.
It's really interesting stuff. And I think that, you know, it's not about little green men running around. It's really about millions and millions of years of life on Earth. How it started, what it was capable of, why it disappeared, and how it came back. And what we're trying to piece together about the origins of our life. Who built the pyramids? Why are there pictures of, you know, symptoms of certain types of physics carved on cave walls from hundreds of thousands of years ago? What are we capable of mankind right now? And what are we modeling these grand pieces of science after? You know, people always go, they can't keep a secret. And then how come the government's never said anything? Where's like the whistleblower testimony? Where's the documents? We're so past that. There's been thousands and thousands of those, and people just go, well, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, or this guy's a quack. I mean, even when someone comes out that was in charge of nuclear missiles, and then he says something about that. They just go, yeah, well, he's weird. You go, well, then why was he in charge of like these death weapons that can destroy the earth?
Because people immediately become weird. Yeah,
they just become weird. No one. So but it's out there. So the bigger question is, people have to realize, and I always sum it down to this, and I think I said it on Larry King, the Deep Space Project by Hubble, which is literally taking the Hubble telescope and focusing it on one grain of sand out in space at arm's length, that tiny. Just they looked for the darkest part of space, the darkest, and they focused it there for 11 days. It just focused on this one spot, 11 fucking days. And after 11 days, they were able to develop a 1-inch by 1-inch slide, color slide. And on that 1-inch by 1-inch color slide, there were 10,000 galaxies. 10,000. And we know by the satellite, the Kepler mission or whatever, I think that's what it's called. Kepler, okay. Mm-hmm. You know, how many planets? They found 2,000 exoplanets already, 2,000 or something. They're like, okay. So we know in our short little vicinity of space here, there's thousands and thousands of Earth-like planets. So we know in the Milky Way, there's billions. There's billions of planets like Earth. Okay. Well, in this 1-inch little slide, there's 10,000 more galaxies. There's billions of galaxies. So you just got to get past this whole notion that it's hard to create life. It's not. The universe is here for life. It's not here for any other reason but life. So let's just move past that and try and figure out, what it is and how we do they wear Nikes or do they wear Macbeth shoes? That's like the more important thing. I saw you Macbeth shoes. I want to thank you for that too, by the way. But
I didn't do that for you. It was
that's all right. No, I'm stoked. I was like, oh God, okay, someone knows about us in Arizona. It's good.
Definitely.
But it's important. So I appreciate you guys coming.
For sure, Tom. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Nice.
Take care.
All right.